Welcome. Welcome, Melissa Scott Miller. Welcome, Jack Russell. Thank you again for turning out. I lean on you pretty regularly now, but I thought while your work is on a crest of a wave, you've also got some very interesting things to say. So I'm leaning on you again. Thank you all for coming. I know I say this every time, but this time I really mean it. All my favourite clients and friends are here tonight, so thank you for turning up. That's very nice. This is our 41st summer exhibition, and I think it's one of the best we've ever done. We're very, very happy with it. Thank you. I'm glad. And it's not got the same old stuff, but it's fairly predictable in our taste of what we like. Everything from the sort of the Glory Turner-esque paintings of my favourite Albert Goodwin to the topographical sweet spots of R Badmin, who's doing so well down there. But this year I think we've got a little different. We've got portraiture for the first time. Now, I don't eschew portraiture usually. As you know, I like self-portraits of artists. I also unashamedly love portraits of young children, particularly Victorian children. I love the sentimentality of childhood, and I make no apologies for it in this absurdly woke age. But that apart, we don't usually go in for portraiture. However, I've changed my mind, and I'm even going to have an entire show next year called FaceTime. We're going to go in for portraiture now. And what was the thing that changed my mind? One portrait has changed my mind. If you haven't seen it already, I want you to feast your eyes on this. It's a portrait of Johnny Johnson, the last of the Dambusters. I saw it, well, we delivered it for Jack, and I saw it hung beautifully at the Royal Society of Portrait Painters a few weeks ago. And I saw that it was only on for 6 days. So I said, no, that needs to be seen for months on end, and that's where it's going to be, on display for months on end. Bravo. When I looked at that, it was like a Damascene moment. You look at a portrait, you start reading in all sorts of your own emotions into it. He was the last of the Dambusters and a very heroic man. But if you didn't know who he was, you would see a man who has got strength, resolute, determination, experience. That is a man who has aged, and has aged in dignity and strength. And indeed, Jack got there in time with his project, and he was dead 2 months later. I think it's a wonderful portrait. Now, am I reading too much into it? I don't think so. Is this what an artist is trying to get when they do a portrait? Are portraits just there as recordings, great men, great women recorded for posterity, a sort of historical fact put down visually? I don't think so. I think the best portraits tell you something more about the sitter. And I think Jack has captured that. And I've seen so many of Melissa's portraits that aren't on display here, but I've seen her, and I know that she does the same thing and has many of the same feelings that Jack has. And I refer to that quickly because we call them the odd couple, really. They couldn't be more different in style, but they paint together, they work well together, and they hold many of the same views. And let's see if we can elicit, and you can please ask questions if you like, some of the feelings that you have about portraits that they have about portraits. Jack, what started you off that got you to that point? And why is that? Why am I reacting like that? Why is that so special?
Well, I'm pleased you are reacting like that, because that's music to my ears. I'm a big Rembrandt fan, so I'm a little bit biased in terms of portraiture. I think it's very important to me. And it was Rembrandt really that inspired me to paint in the first place, amongst a couple of other guys, because I just thought pig-headedly, and those that know me, being an ex-wicket keeper, we can get a little bit noisy and above our station. And I thought, well, if Rembrandt can do it, why can't I?
Why not?
But the problem is, Rembrandt the standard is so. If you look at Rembrandt, you'll see he's just way out into the distance there, and the bar is way up that high. But that's fine. That's fine. So I'm still on that journey of trying to. I'm hoping to live long enough to get somewhere near. So I'm not in Rembrandt's bracket. But I've had it on good authority that actually he didn't catch a cricket ball very well. So I'm a little bit ahead of him on that game. But it's an important part of my life, actually. And you're right, Chris, about you just don't paint somebody, you just don't paint a portrait, you just don't go or work from a photograph and just paint somebody's image. There's more to it than that, and I think Melissa may feel the same thing. It's a journey that's almost priceless. Well, it is priceless. I managed to find Johnny. I've been searching for him for quite a few years, not very hard, I should have done better. And I saw him on local TV in the West Country one evening, and I thought, oh, I'm going to ring up that interviewer and ask him where Johnny is, being from the West Country myself. So I'd searched for him for quite a few years, and below me he was about 2 or 3 miles down the road in a care home in Bristol, and he'd been there all the time. And I knew he was the last Dambuster. And I thought, well, I just dropped what I was doing, everything. Sorry, Chris, probably left a few pictures for you. And I thought, I've got to get down there and do Johnny. And I'm just so pleased I managed to catch him in time. And he wasn't very well at the time, he was quite ill. You could see he was struggling a little bit. But he's still insisting on paying for lunch. He wouldn't let me pay. We wheeled him to the pub next door, and he wouldn't let me pay. And I did 2 sit-ins with Johnny. The first one's normally just photographs and just to get to know the person a little bit. But I knew a lot about Johnny anyway because of his heroics, so he's a well-known character. And this happens a lot with me. I had it in my mind that I was going to paint a certain view, and he's a bomb aimer, so leading up to the raid on the dams in 1943, they practiced bombing, pretend bombing, lakes up in the north of England with a handheld triangular piece of wood. That was their, as simple as that. That was their aiming device. And when the towers of the dam filled the 2 holes, you press the button, drop the bomb. Barnes Wallace's bouncing bomb. But the day of the raid, Johnny and his aircraft were asked to do a different approach. They hadn't practiced for it, they knew nothing about doing it, and really it was a little bit suicidal, but they had to approach a different dam from the side, so they had to fly along across the top of the dam. They hadn't practiced it, they hadn't worked on it, and so my vision of painting and looking through his little device went out the window to think something else, because it didn't bomb the dam in that fashion. And I remember him telling me they took, I think it's on the wall there, they took 10 approaches and they had to go over a hill, dive down the other side of a hill, miss a church tower by meters, and bomb the dam. Well, Johnny, being a bit of a perfectionist, and I've found this out, they did 10 runs. It was up to him to drop the bomb. He did not drop the bomb until absolutely perfect, bang, smack in the middle, drop the bomb. And all the crew, well, I won't repeat what they said, but they were pretty relieved to be suddenly going home. But that was Johnny, and I just felt his determination, and he was frail, not too well. His daughter was with us, and she kept saying to me, he's not got long and it's difficult, but he still had that steely personality that shone through in his eyes. And I always try and go for the eyes first. If I get the eyes right, I feel like I'm getting quite close to the personality. But the stories that went with it helped me produce that. And it's I don't know, it's difficult to explain, but it's like a personal journey that is just so priceless. Melissa would probably feel the same. It's so priceless that, you know, I wouldn't have missed it for the world to do that. It's just, it was such an honour to do it. And I just pleased.
You had a very short time with it,
yeah.
and you say you had 2 sessions. But you have longer sessions because of what you want to get out, to get to know them a bit better. I just might ask Melissa on that. You turned down most commissions because you've done that all years ago when the commissions came flying, and now you want to do commissions for certain people because they interest you in some way. You're not onto the war veterans because it's a crowded field, but you seem to choose very randomly. Why do you choose some of your commissions? I know when you get to the end of it, what you've got out of it and what they've got out of it. But what makes you go for that in the first place?
Well, I do a lot of, when people ask me, I always feel like, particularly through the Royal Society of Portrait Painters, the fact that, because there's some amazing painters there, and the fact that they've chosen me, I think, you know, I must respect that. But like I was saying earlier, I feel like I'm meant to paint sometimes. But yeah, some people I do feel I just can't. And I really admire like Jack, and that's incredible. Like, he's really passionate, you know, to find all that stuff out. And, you know, he obviously found really strongly. And I paint a lot of portraits. I've just got hundreds of portraits of my own children and people who are very close to me, and self-portraits. And quite rarely, I mean, the most recent one that I did, and the song of the sister is lovely, Boys Come Along, which I'm so pleased, because I just felt such an incredible bond with her. Like, you know, we exchanged a few emails and we got on really well, and she wanted her room as well. And I like doing interiors and bits and pieces, and it was a really interesting room. And I enjoyed it so much that I insisted on doing another one, because I felt I'd got to know her better. And it's true what Jack says, you know, that people sort of, you know, it's an incredible experience painting someone. That's why I don't really like painting from photographs, but sometimes you have to. But there's something that happens when you're together. Yes.
Does the context, you referred to it with your last portrait you enjoyed so much with the other Melissa. The context was that she sounds like she's got almost nil vanity. She wanted to be part of her life and her room. And this, at first, this suited you because you love objects, you like architectural interiors. And so you started off very pleased with the commission.
Yeah.
But it was determined by what she wanted, which is quite refreshing, because most portraits are unless they're commissioned by somebody outside, like royalty or peers or pop singers or something, they're commissioned from a sort of attempt at immortality, but also just plain vanity. So that was lovely, because there was no vanity there, but she ended up being pretty good. And the room looked sensational, and it explained her life. And you probably also have the same thing, Jack, that you want to put them into context. But of course, mostly they're in wheelchairs by the time you get to them. But do you compensate in trying to show, it's a very difficult thing, showing what happened in their life, how showing the hero in them, or showing the anguish. Just make a little remark about the Joe Collett one there, where you.
If I forget, come back to me. But I would just like to say, there's a tug of war going on in your brain all the time. Because if somebody's commissioned you to paint a portrait, then you obviously want them to like it. But the problem is, I always find, is that sometimes they don't look like who they think they look like. So there's this constant struggle, worry, anxiety about whether they're going to like it, will it look close, will you like them or not. A couple of times I've had to say, oh, I'm sorry, but that's actually what you look like. So it's difficult, but I don't know if it's the same for Melissa, but there's this tug of war, there's a worry that goes on, because you want to please the commissioner. Just talking about Joe, that's another interesting thing that happened, talking about Price's experience, and we were chatting about it earlier, about therapy, not just for us but for the sitters. And I had no idea, painting this series of veterans a couple of years ago, that I was giving them therapy, until a guy from the Times, a young guy called Jack Blackburn, did an article for the Times about the veterans I was painting. And he said, you know, you're giving them therapy, you know. what do you mean? He said, no, you're actually helping these guys. And when I look back, what happened was, especially with Joe, because Joe wasn't very forthcoming, didn't go to regimental reunions, didn't like being outside very much, generally just kept himself to himself. But when he'd heard that it was an ex-England wicketkeeper who used to catch a few cricket balls and hit the odd cricket ball for a living, when he heard it was me, because of his love of sport, football and cricket, he agreed to do it. And when I went there, he's still a little bit frosty. We didn't really get to know each other for a little while. Just take some photographs, a bit of a chat, left. And I go away to work out what particular view I'm going to do. That often changes. But when I went back to do the small colour note there, he was quiet to start with, but then he started to chat. And the 9 of the 10 veterans I did in that particular collection were all prisoners of war with the Chinese in North Korea, and which I can tell you apparently was not a very pleasant experience for 2 years. But Joe didn't go to prison, didn't get taken prisoner. He got shot in the legs and in the wrist early in the Battle of the Indian River and got evacuated out. Ever since then, he's felt guilty that he got out and survived, and a lot of his mates died and became prisoner and suffered. That guilt slowly started to come out. We were starting to chat. The reason the picture's not finished because we were chatting for so much in the 3 hours that we were together, and I managed to get his eyes. And because of what he told me about the suffering, his suffering and the guilt, I thought once I've got his eyes, and I thought, well, if I can capture that in his eyes, then I don't need any more. That's it. The job's done. The other piece of information, which I didn't delve into because I know it was really painful, his son was in the Grenadier Guards. I don't think he was killed in action or while he was a soldier, but his son passed away about 10 years earlier, and he was grieving greatly with that problem. So I didn't push him on that, but I could see the pain. There was pain in this man, and that came across in those 3 hours that we did. And when he got out of the chair, a bit front, when he got out, he seemed to be taller. He seemed to go, oh, that's like. And the more the 3 hours went on, the more we chatted, and he seemed to grow, and he was a bit livelier, and he was happy. And I think because he got rid of all that pent-up guilt, he felt a better person. And then I went back and thought about the other guys who were prisoners of war, the 9 of the guys, and I thought they all did the same. They actually went, oh, thank you very much. That guilt is off my shoulders now. It's like the baggage is gone. Now you can't buy that. I mean, from an artist's point, from anybody's point of view, that is such an experience to know that you've done that. That's probably one of the most special pictures probably I'll ever paint in my life because of what happened with Joe that afternoon. But when those sorts of things happen, that is, you probably can't buy that. You can be Elon Musk, the richest guy in the world. It doesn't matter. You can't buy that experience. So I'm just so pleased and honoured to be able to do that.
It's a wonderful thing. And he didn't come to you and say, actually, could you give me a bit more hair? Or, Have you had any really difficult experiences, Melissa? You don't need to name names, but it's really you should be like singer sergeants and start off by making them beautiful. No matter how brutish some upper class lady is, it still looks beautiful once singer sergeant has got hold of it. But have you come under pressure to?
I have. Like, you really want to please the person, and it's really horrible when they look at the portrait and their face kind of balls. But I do try to do my best. Like sometimes people know their own face, actually, and that's better than you do. But sometimes, mostly, people just say they just want to see your interpretation. But one thing, another portrait I did quite recently of a chaplain of a college in Oxford, and I was really looking forward to doing it. I thought this was going to be amazing, spiritual kind of thing. And the first thing she said, she thought was, I do smile, and I had to change it and make her smile. And I thought I'd done it. I was really pleased with what I'd done. And it was really difficult. like I could understand, you know, how she felt. And she was lovely, and the whole thing went really well. Like they'd chosen me actually because I do the whole background, so I did all the chapel and the stained glass window and everything. So it was okay in the end. But a lot of my fellow RP, Royal Society of Portraits, we all have that problem with people wanting to smile. And some people are really good at saying no, you know, but it's a difficult one. But I think, you know, it's great. It's a lovely thing, like what Jack's doing. It's different because he's got an obsession, he's got an interest, and he's doing them for himself. That's the key to everything, is to do something for yourself, you know, to stick to your vision, and it will end up being a beautiful portrait, you know. But as soon as you get too involved in listening to what people want, you know, I think it can make it like then you're not. That's why I don't do so many actually.
Because you feel
yeah,
precious.
I don't like not pleasing people. I'm not prepared to. I want to do a good painting. That's important. You don't want a painting out there that you don't like. So, yeah, it's got to be what I want.
Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking that brute of an art dealer keeps forcing commissions on. Is this is not true, is it?
No, Chris actually tries to talk me out. Mainly I'm doing commissions of people's views and stuff like that. And Chris says to me, are you sure you want to do that? He's always trying to persuade me not to do it. But I do find, I think it is really nice to do a commission because it makes you do something you wouldn't choose, and often you learn new things from that.
Does anybody want to ask them? We've only scratched at the surface of this fascinating subject. Yes?
A lot earlier on was said about Rembrandt. Where do either you stand on self-portraits?
I'm too ugly. I've seen too many cricket pictures of myself. I don't want to look at myself anymore. When I finished playing cricket in 2004, the very first picture I did, when I became a full-time artist, the next day in the studio I did a self-portrait, quite a big one, a bit bigger than that one over there. And it's just such a weird experience. It's sort of, first of all, you're looking in a mirror, so that's not you. So you're not being seen as people are seeing you. That's a major problem. So I had to get my daughter to take a photograph and try and find something in between. And I was a bit revved up at the time because my cricket had gone, my art career was right when you get this real crack full time. So I've got a lot of intensity in my arm. My daughter said, you've got madness in your eye. She thought I'd gone crazy. So I haven't done one since that, but I might go back to it because Rembrandt is my hero, and John Singer Sargent. It's a different class. So I'm probably due. That's 20 years ago. So I am due. So watch this space.
As a master of the self-portrait, what do you say?
Well, I'm probably like, because I'm so self-obsessed, I'm doing hundreds of self-portraits. Because, you know that you don't mind sitting for yourself, and it's a chance to do something. And I love self-portraits by other artists. I think it's really fascinating. I love portraits of people doing something, because you're concentrating, you're really looking, and you have a certain expression. I think it's such an interesting thing. And also I'm really interested in the fact, I've been doing self-portraits since I was a child, and I'm interested in the way I'm aging. I don't mind that. I find it really fascinating. And I'm the same with, I'm going to do a portrait of my ex-partner, because I painted him so much. I'm just fascinated with the way he's aging. So yeah.
So if anybody's really fascinated at how much they're aging, anybody else want to say anything?
Are there any portraits of you, Chris?
Hmm?
Are there any portraits of you?
Not yet. He doesn't know.
There was one done once. I looked terrifying. Sort of devilish and saturnine and vicious. And, I said, "Do you want it?" I said, "No, thank you." It's out there somewhere.
How about Peter
Scaring
Cross?
old ladies, I don't know.
How about Peter Cross? He did you, and he's done you many times, Peter Cross.
Yes, Peter does me in subtle miniature, so even I can look all right. But it's Peter Cross jokey shorthand. He gets the sideburns, even though they're no longer there. It's like doing a caricature of Gladstone. As long as you get the wing collar and the big, you know it's Gladstone. Anyway, PC will probably carry on putting me on the spine of the illustrators. Is this true? Yes. But otherwise, I mean, contrary to rumour, I don't have a great deal of vanity, so I will probably not be sitting for a portrait. Though for Melissa, I might. Does anybody else want to say anything? Thank you all for coming. The bar is still open.
Thank you.
And the artists are available for any amount of boring stories of your relatives' portraits. So please carry on. Thank you.